Year!
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to another Gotta Run Racing podcast.
Woot woot! I've been seeing everyone setting goals for themselves on Instagram, race goals. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and what are our goals this year?
Well, we have a couple big ones, I would say. If you didn't listen to our recap show, which was pretty funny, if I do say so myself, we're going to Slovenia in April to do a 60K.
What? 60K? I thought it was 70.
No, it's 60. It's actually 59.
Oh, okay. 59's okay.
59's enough. Trust me. It's enough. And then you're going to Alberta.
Yes.
To do Lost Soul, running the coolies.
I'm going to find my soul. Because it's apparently lost at Lost Soul.
You got it.
Yeah, that's our big to-dos this year. And what is your to-do? Please let us know.
Let us know. We want to check out some more local races this year, too. Support our fellow RDs. So we're going to see what's happening in Ontario as well.
Yep.
Right?
And Canada.
And Canada, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a couple in the prairies that are looking kind of interesting. Manitoba Epic Gate takes place in one of our We Run the North national parks, Riding Mountain.
Well, we'll get there one day.
We sure will. But before we get to our guest today, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters who continue to tune in and support the show.
Yeah.
It only takes a couple of minutes. If you want to support us, it's the price basically of a gel per month, and it goes a long way. And if Patreon's not your thing, simple task is to give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All right. And who's on the podcast today?
Today we have Marcus Kjellberg from Sweden, our very first Swedish guest.
That's right. Wow.
49 years old. He's an ultra runner and content creator. We actually were looking up a race in Spain called Val D'Aran because our friend Will is going to be running Val D'Aran this year. We wanted to learn more about it. So we came across his video and we really enjoyed it. It's got great content. So we thought, let's reach out and see what he has to say. It's a tough race. It takes place in the Pyrenees, 10,000 meters of climbing with a 48-hour cutoff, which is pretty comparable to UTMB, right?
Well, some deem it as harder than UTMB. That's why
Really?
they gave it that extra 2 hours.
Wow. Well, he's towed the line twice there with two very different experiences. So we're going to ask him about that.
And yes, you could check out all his videos at Marcus Kjellberg, his YouTube channel. And all that will be in our show notes.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it.
Here's Marcus coming up. Welcome to the podcast, Marcus.
Thank you.
And we checked out your... Oh, you're from Sweden, is that right?
Yeah,
and
Sweden.
what part of Sweden is that?
So Gothenburg, the west coast, south of Sweden.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
very nice.
yeah.
We checked out your ITRA and noticed that you never did race in Canada.
Yeah.
And we're wondering what's up with that.
I didn't race in the US either, but
Yeah,
I
North
mean,
America.
that's on the bucket list for sure.
Well, the reason that we are having you on today is because we were checking out Val D'Aran. A friend of ours is going to be running it this year. And your video was one of the very first videos that came up, and we watched the whole thing, which, as you know, on YouTube, it's very unusual to actually get through an entire video. So that says a lot for your content creation. But before we get into the races that you've been doing and your content, how did you even begin to start trail running?
Well, so I was doing the half marathons, the marathons to begin with when I started to run. And at some point, you know, you get a little bit older, you get a bit slower. It was natural to progress onto the trails and more explore, you know, how far you can go rather than how fast you can go. So, and also I think it was like maybe 10 years ago was when the trail running kind of boomed, at least here in Sweden. So that was about the time when I got into trail running. So starting off with a kind of marathon distance and then progressing it up to 100 miles.
What was your first ultra race? When was that and how did that go?
Well, my first ultra was probably, I mean, it was like the 50K distance. So, and it was a trail ultra. And that is probably like 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah. And yeah, that's a funny story as well, because it was sold out, but they had, they basically had a lottery. So I entered with my wife's name and my own name, and I got into my wife's name. So I was actually winning the women's race in my wife's but I thought I had a little bit too much beard to qualify for the women's race there. But...
That's a race director's nightmare when you have people running under the wrong name.
But that was the only option I had to get into the race.
And how did it go overall, your first ultra?
Well, I mean, yeah, it went okay. It was good fun. What was a winter trails? It was really cold as well, like Sweden can be in January. So back in those days, you didn't have the flasks in front. You had a camelback in the back, and what do you call it? The straw froze, you know, after the first K or something like that. So you couldn't drink for the whole race, pretty much. But yeah, it was good fun, and then I've done it many times since then as well. But in terms of placement, I don't really know how I. But I'm more running for the adventure and not so much the performance.
Of course. And your first 100-mile finish was back in 2018 at Kullamannen. You've been there many times, is that right?
Yeah, 5 times now. So 5 finishes as well. So no DNFs so far. So that's good.
How many rings do you want?
Yeah, so now I got 5 rings. So yeah, I don't know, maybe, but I might go for another. Yeah, because it's kind of close by is where I live. So I'll probably end up there this year as well. It's a really nice race, actually.
What's the story behind the rings? Is there a reason why they do rings instead of medals?
I don't know the full story, but those guys, they are really good in kind of creating the ambience around it and the story around it and the mystery around it. So, and yeah, a ring is a perfect thing to go away with rather than a medal or a vest like UTMB. So I think that's great. And then also they introduced that concept of having, after 3 finishes, you get a golden ring and so on, and which is quite nice as well. So people come back, they want the golden ring, and they say after 5 finishes, you get the diamond ring as well. So,
ooh. So yeah. Do you have a diamond ring?
Yeah, now I have a diamond ring. I have 5 finishes.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great concept. I love that.
Yeah.
So now that you have a few 100-mile Swedish races under your belt, you ventured off into Spain, Val D'Aran, in 2021.
Yeah.
That was during COVID years. So how was the whole COVID situation then?
Yeah, so we kind of had a in between there, so it kind of opened up, but it was still, you know, kind of one day it was on and then it was off, and you didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And everybody was like really longing for getting out racing again. In Sweden, we were not so locked down as the rest of the Europe, so we still had some races going on in Sweden, but then to be able to travel around in Europe was, of course, but yeah, so we got down there. We had to start with a mask on, and you know, you had the 2-meter rule, but that didn't apply in the start for sure. And I don't think it was a waved start either, actually, but yeah, but I mean, it's a beautiful place, Val D'Aran. So I actually came back this year as well. But it's a tough race as well, so it's much more technical than UTMB, and the downhills are much steeper, less runnable, I would say, and yeah, it's a little bit tougher overall.
Well, we're going to ask you, how were you feeling at the start line, knowing that this could be your toughest race to date?
It was my toughest race to date, so because where I live, we don't have any mountains, so I never practiced any elevation running at all.
That sounds familiar, Norm?
Yeah. I did go to the Pyrenees before Val D'Aran, twice at least, and I failed both. One was a big storm hit us, so they canceled the race, or they stopped the race. And then the second time I tried, I basically reached my limits and DNF'd. But so I had never completed a like a mountain 100-mile ultra, so it was definitely the toughest race for me at that point.
Well, we watched your video and we know what went down, but can you explain it to our listeners, because we want to ask you about the fact that you're a runner with diabetes as well. So just if you could just kind of give us a little recap of that particular 2021.
Yeah, so I mean, diabetes is basically another thing to watch out for. So you have your nutrition you have to stay on top with. You have your sleep thing when you're running ultra that you have to stay on top with. So diabetes is just another dimension that you need to care about and kind of stay the balance of eating and getting the insulin, So, but basically what happened, because a lot of strange things happened during the ultra. So even though, and you think you are, because I had diabetes for 20 years or so you think you're like a ninja on diabetes, that you could manage it. But strange things happen on a daily basis, more or less. But on ultra, it's even worse. So, and when you go beyond, let's say 12 hours or something like that, that's a territory that you rarely visit with diabetes, right?
Yeah.
And then strange things start to happen. So, basically the insulin lost its effect, so I could not get my blood sugar down. And at the time I was pretty convinced that it was during the day it was really hot, so I thought my insulin got spoiled in the heat or something like that, and I had some backup in my drop bag and so on, but basically I could not get my insulin down, and then So I was 2/3 into the race, something like that, and I decided to not go out on the second night, basically going out again into the mountains without getting control of my diabetes. So,
right.
And when I told the medics, I mean, they insisted to drive me to the hospital and everything. I insisted that they drive me to the hotel and I can kind of take care of it, but so it was, it was a bit scary. So it was better to pull the plug, so to say. And
for sure.
What made you decide?
What right decision?
What made you decide to pick Val D'Aran as your first mountainous race? Because this is a beast.
There was a couple of reasons. I think it was the first time they ever had it. So, and that also makes it very difficult because you don't know what to expect when you go into a first edition of a race, because no one ran it before. You have no idea what. So we kind of know it was going to be hard and everything. But then the other thing, because a lot of runners turned up, and it was a direct qualifier to UTMB. So everybody that finished that year got a start place at UTMB. So
whoa!
So that was a big thing as well. So I was mainly there I wouldn't go and run just to go to UTMB. It was not the big bucket list actually for me, but it was more to run the Val D'Aran. But it was a lot of people that year that came, and also maybe because it was one of the few races that opened up during COVID and so on as well. So.
Right. Now, do you have any advice for any diabetic runners who may just be starting to dip their toe into the ultra distances? Is there any? Obviously, you've had to practice with many different types of nutrition and the way that you strategize to get through a race. Do you have anything you can help our listeners out with?
Yeah, so first of all, and I got it a few years back, but I have the insulin pump. So I can constantly monitor. So, and that's a big thing. So I basically have this, I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically, I can see all the time, where I'm at and if it's going up or down and kind of the trend and everything. So that's helps a lot. And so that's a good thing to have. But other than that, you need to track it the whole time. And then I try to, rather than stay on, 90 grams of carb every hour or something like that, I kind of do it the other way around. So I have constant insulin, and then I see how much I can eat depending on how it So it happens sometimes. I was in UK running this 13 Valley race. I had a similar problem there as in Val D'Aran, where it didn't go down, and for 8-10 hours the only thing I could eat was a cup of coffee with milk because I couldn't get but eventually I got it down that time. But so I try to more balance it the other way around. But yeah, it's always difficult. But yeah, you should not be afraid. So if you have some backup, the worst thing that can happen is that you get really low. But as long as you have sugar with you, then you can save yourself, so to say.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Well, in that year, 2021 at Val D'Aran, a big shout out to Anna Carlson. She ended up winning a fellow
Swede.
Fellow Swede.
Yeah.
And you were having a beer with her at the finish line, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a great time because I was sitting at the first row at the finish line on the Sunday and see everybody come in, and I could cheer them on, and the friends that I was out running with, I could, bring them into the finish line and so on. And then Anna came up and we had a few beers, and so it was a good time. So it was not a sad DNF. I mean, if you DNF for the wrong reason, that you just quit, then maybe you have some regrets afterwards. But sometimes, I mean, even a DNF is a race and it's an adventure. It was a great adventure for 120K, something like that. I mean, it was a beautiful race. So I just have good memories from that trip, even though I didn't finish myself. But yeah.
Well, a big shout out to our Canadian as well, who came third. That's Stephanie Case.
Yeah.
So they battled. They battled each other pretty good there for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to 2022 now. You have earned your spot into UTMB. How many years were you trying to get into UTMB?
Yeah, so I never really tried. So I was in Val D'Aran to get the ticket, and I was told, like, if you don't get in through Val D'Aran, you're never going to get in, basically. It's going to take you years. And then I think the only points I had was from this Kullamannen race or whatever, and I threw in the lottery, and then I won. But wow. I think maybe it was a little bit easier that year because during COVID, it was few people that could, gather all the points and everything. That's what I heard. And also, if it was China, Russia, whatever, they were still in lockdown, so they could not travel and so on. So I don't know if it was slightly easier that year, but that was great.
Well,
I didn't have.
Sorry.
No, I didn't have so big expectations. I mean, many people, they're traveling around just for going to UTMB. But of course, being there, it was fantastic. It was a great experience.
Well, another excellent video. I really liked how you chatted with so many different people along the course. That was really cool to interact with them. But a big highlight was obviously the running of the bulls, and we know exactly what section you were on during that. So can you explain how that went down? Because people need to watch that. I would have been jumping off the cliff.
Yeah, so, and I don't know if they are actually bulls. I think there are cows with horns. That's what I've been told, but it sounds much cooler if you tell them it's bulls. And they feel like big animals anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they were just going in the same direction as we were running, basically, and interfering with us and blocking us. And I mean, they didn't really care about us. And yeah, it felt like you were in Pamplona, like being chased by all the bulls, and it was a bit frightening.
I suppose they were cows.
And it made a good action video.
It did. Well. I was shocked at how fast they were. I've never seen cows move so fast in my life.
Yeah.
Our cows don't move that fast, but despite being chased by bulls, you still finished in just over 41 hours, which is pretty amazing. You must have been very proud after that's really your first mountain finish.
Yeah, that was actually my first mountain finish. And to the story was that I was injured from April until just a week before the race, pretty much. So I was not running at all and no elevations. I was just biking. And it was almost to the point where I didn't go down to Chamonix because, you know, I hadn't been training, and so I wasn't sure if I could pull it off. But then, of course, the ticket was paid and everything, and you know, all the friends were going down, so of course I went. But it also made me very humble going into that race. So I was running it in I paced myself in a very good way. I was taking it very easy and relaxed, and that was probably the key to success. Because normally I'm going out way too fast, and then I'm destroyed after 1/3 or whatever. So it was a good race.
That's awesome.
And it was fantastic meeting all the people. And I think, as you mentioned, I try to share other people's stories. And I think you have that on your tagline as well. Like every runner has a story, and there's so many untold stories on the trail. So that's what I like the most, also to connect with all different types of people. Everybody have their own story. I might capture bits and pieces of it, but I mean, that's really, you have the dimension of the nature, but you also have for me, it's very social to running. And at UTMB, so many people to interact with all the time as well, which is nice.
Exactly. Because they all have the story of the journey of how they got there in the first place. Because you don't just enter that race. There's always some background to that. So it was nice.
And so many emotions at the start lines, like everybody, not many people, they are crying at the start line. And I mean, it's a big thing, right?
Yep.
Very big. Yeah, the one shot that you did where you panned across the start line around you, you could see the emotion in people's faces and a little bit of fear too. I know Norm talked about that in his videos. Everyone looked a little bit afraid, which is good. You should be afraid.
It is scary. But it's also fantastic. So.
It felt to me that we're all going off to war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the townspeople are just cheering us on to go fight this battle of this mountain.
That's how it feels like. I watched your video the other day as well. It's great to look back and you know, you remember so many things. Like I remember in the start there, you had a beer. I was doing the same this year at least, probably at the same place. And
wouldn't it have been funny if we videotaped each other without knowing?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, last year, you go back to Val D'Aran, which in 2021 you DNF'd. Now you're going back. You're getting more experience because of UTMB. You're ready for whatever comes your way. So you're climbing the first mountain. You're climbing the first mountain. What happened at Val D'Aran last year?
So 2023, basically, it was this. And the weather forecast and everything is that it's going to be like 30 degrees, super hot, really nice weather. And it was not a cloud, you know, you could not imagine what was about to happen. So just when we hit the first climb, it was like 2 hours into the race, we hit the tree line, above the tree line. And then it just started to hail and pour and the sky exploded basically. And when you're out there, you don't know what the race direction is, because it came as a surprise to them as well. They had no idea.
Right.
And the lightning was going on. It was like no shelter or anything. So it was a bit scary, and it felt like mad. Are we really going up to that peak? And you see the lightning everywhere. And then also it turned the slopes into like extremely slippery. So on the first downhill, you know, everybody snapped their poles and fell. I mean, it was a mess.
Wow.
But then it stopped raining, and then we said, now it's probably good to go. But then it picked up again, and eventually, 4 hours into the race, they stopped the race, basically. But it was hailing, you know, golf ball size hail. And when you don't have any shelter, and it was stormy with crazy storms, and it was the right decision. And also going from 30 degrees to extremely cold. So everybody got because we got stopped in one of the aid stations, and just by standing still there, soaked for half an hour, then you start to freeze. And going into the night like that would not have been good either. So.
Yeah, that would be dangerous. No, when we were watching your video and you saw that lightning strike, we both were like, whoa, what the heck?
exploding everywhere. And then, yeah, it was really scary. And that happened to me a few years before in the Pyrenees as well, that we were like 4 hours into, it was Emiac, it's another 100-mile race, maybe less known, but yeah, we got stopped. So I never had any success in the Pyrenees. Basically been there 4 times and I have not a single finish yet.
Did you say in the video that there's a section that's about 10K up on the ridge line of the mountain, or did I misunderstand that?
I don't know how long it is, but it's maybe after 10K into the race or something like that. But it's a really nice ridge line in the beginning. Yeah. And but the first year we got there, it was sunset and perfect weather. But this year, or 2023, that's where we had all the lightning instead. Yeah. So it was completely the opposite. But that's a really beautiful part of the course when you have the right weather for it, so to say.
Yeah, definitely.
So who called it when the weather started going crazy? Who called that race saying, we're done, this race is now over?
Yeah, so that was also a bit confusing, but I guess it was the race director, but they because they cannot stop you when you're out on the course. So what happened is, like, when we got into the second aid station, we were not allowed to go out. There were some people that have already gone out from that stage, and they come up to the next ridge, but then the hail was hitting them so hard, so they were fleeing back the mountain back again. They didn't know that the race was stopped at the time, but they were basically so scared for their life, so they were just coming down the same way. But yeah, I don't really know, and it was a little bit confusing as well, because they were saying that, yeah, we're gonna pick it up tomorrow morning, or we're just gonna hold you here for an hour or so on. So it was a lot of yeah, it was very unclear if they're going to restart the race or not. And eventually what happened, but the communication could have been better. But eventually what happened was that on Sunday, they had like a 50K or 30K race, and we were invited to run that. But we just got notice, on the Saturday night, I think, the night before that race. And then a lot of people went back home already. So the communication was maybe not the best, but it was still good. I mean, it was a great weekend because it was only for those 2-3 hours, and that were really hit. And then the next morning was beautiful. So we went out running by our own, and then on the Sunday as well. So it was a perfect, actually, training weekend for me for UTMB, because then I got 50K and maybe 5,000 meters of elevation. So that was great.
Yeah.
If the organizers didn't call it, would you have called it? Would you have said, I'm done because of the weather, or would you?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because I'm really glad they called it, because I was freezing. So I don't know if I could have survived that night, but still, yeah, that's you could argue when we went up on the first ridge, should we really have gone up there, or should we have turned around already? It was like one guy I saw that turned around at that point, but yeah, no, I'm glad they called it. So that was the right decision.
And you still got your stones?
We got, I think we got two for that Friday, 2 stones, and then we got 2 if we did do the Sunday race as well. So all in all, I think we got 4 stones.
Is it still called stones? I don't know. They keep changing what the terminology is. Is it still?
Yeah,
it's stones.
Changed to stones.
Yeah. Changed to stones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still confused.
Yeah, it is confusing. Would you go back, Marcus?
Well, so yeah, basically the other compensation we had was like we had a reduced fee for this year, it's half the price or whatever. But I actually gonna do Lavaredo this summer, so that's kind of the weekend before, I think. So I probably wait another year for Val D'Aran, but I will come back. I need to do it at some point. And it's really, really nice. I really love that place. And I brought the family as well. And they really liked it as well. So it's as nice of a valley as Chamonix, I would say.
Oh, wow. Lavaredo is going to be awesome. Pretty technical.
Yeah, I don't really know so much about it. It feels like it's just 120 kilometers. So
only. Only.
Now that you did Val D'Aran and UTMB, how would you compare the two of them with the atmosphere and the toughness of it?
Yeah, I think Val D'Aran is, and also the town itself is kind of like a mini version of Chamonix. So it's a little bit more, I mean, everything is extreme at Chamonix. You have all the pros there and everything, right? Val D'Aran is a little bit more relaxed, maybe a little bit less people, but it's still a big race, and it's a nice city, good food, and yeah, beautiful town. So.
And then you finished off the year last year with UTMB again and Kullamannen. Am I saying that right?
Kullamannen.
Kullamannen.
Yeah. And I squeezed in between there. I also squeezed in 13 Valleys. It's another UK race.
Wow. And you're able to beat both your UTMB time and Kullamannen time.
It was a good year for you.
Yeah, no, it was a good year, especially the fall. So because UTMB, so this year, but this year I have been training a little bit more because the first year I was injured. So and then also mentally I was much more prepared because the first year I didn't really know if I was even going to be at the start line. So I didn't really know any of the places we went through. I didn't know the profile of the course or anything. I was just but this time I kind of know all the places, and so it made it easier and much more controlled. So I was actually feeling very strong when I finished UTMB this year. So that was good. So when I came back from UTMB, I kind of felt pretty recovered almost after a week. So then I decided to sign up for Kullamannen and also the 13 Valleys, because I had some friends that were going over to Lake District in the UK for this first edition inaugural 13 Valleys race, which proved to be a beast of a race as well. So I did 3 pretty tough 100-mile races in pretty much 2 months, 60 days or something.
Wow. This guy could barely walk after a month.
I went on a 2-month bender after UTMB.
Yeah, no, that was amazing to see how the body was holding up, and I didn't get any quality training in between those races, that's for sure, but I was able to recover enough to kind of get them through.
Well, this has been great, Marcus. Thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, it was great. So when are you coming to Sweden for running?
Well, that's a good question. I think we need to...
We need more time. We already signed up for Slovenia.
Istria.
No, Ultra Trail Vajvipa Valley.
Yeah,
in the region of Istria, but it's a different race. Yeah.
When are you coming?
We'll stay in touch. How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Well, before we let you go, we like to finish with a few rapid fire questions just for some fun. Okay. All right. Would you rather be a professional writer, painter, or musician?
Musician.
Musician. Rock band?
Yeah, rock band. Yeah.
Not ABBA.
No, not ABBA. No.
Okay. Do you have any tattoos?
No, not yet.
Would you get one?
I doubt it, but yeah.
Okay. All right. What's another sport you'd like to excel in?
Mountain biking.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, if you were on the trail and you stub your toe on a rock, what do you say in Swedish?
Curse word. Famous curse word.
Fan.
Oh, that's got a good ring to it.
How do you spell that?
F-A-N.
F-A-N. Fa'an. Fa'an?
Yeah.
Fa'an. Okay, I'm going to remember that. Beer or wine?
Beer.
What's a good Swedish beer?
We have a lot of local microbreweries these days, I guess. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be checking that out when we come to visit you.
Yeah.
What's the last concert you went to?
Last concert was I think it was Little Dragon. It's a Swedish band.
Oh,
You should
okay.
check them out. They're from Gothenburg, actually. Yeah.
Oh, really? Little Dragon. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to check them out on Spotify. And
Yeah.
Norm, last question.
Pick a superpower you'd like to have.
Superpower. Yeah, it would be nice to be invisible once in a while.
That's true. That's true.
That's a good one.
All right, Marcus. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
all the
thank you.
best. All the best this year at your events. It's we'll be following along for sure. Look forward to the videos.
Yeah, perfect. See you
Okay.
in the trail.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
That was Marcus Kjellberg from Sweden, diabetic ultra runner.
Our first podcast of 2024.
Woo woo! Oh, it was very interesting. He's done some pretty epic races, and sounds like you. He trains in no elevation and shows up.
Yeah, why not?
Sees what happens.
I'm not here to run. I'm here to video the experience.
Nothing wrong with that.
Whatever happens along the way, I'm good with it.
Well, I'm definitely intrigued about Kullamannen now, because obviously we want to race in Scandinavia.
But it's going to be mostly in the dark, in the night.
Yeah, that's true. It's in the dark, but I want a ring. Never had a ring. I've had a necklace before, but never a ring.
That is something.
And I didn't know about the golden and the diamond. What a great idea.
And I think that's only for the 100-miler.
Oh,
So
I don't get a ring for the shorter distances?
maybe you get a quarter of a ring. And then you have to put the ring together. Running it for...
Oh, that's a good idea.
Oh, easy now.
Yeah.
Easy now.
Okay. Well,
All right.
if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, a share, or a rating, or all three.
Wherever you download your favorite podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, bye.